はい。皆さん、こんにちは。ジョーです。今日はですね、皆さんも多くの方が知ってるかなと思うんですけれども、スイッチボードという新たなオラクルプロバイダーですね。かなりこのプロバイダーに関しては今後、我々の DeFi の体系に関してすごく重要になってくると思うので、今日はですね、そのコファウンダーでもあり CTO でもあるミッツさんに、ぜひいろいろとお話をお伺いしていきたいと思います。Okay, Mitch, thank you so much for your time despite your busy schedule. Now, I think I see a lot of posts about Switchboard collaboration with other protocols and so on. I think it's really getting exciting timing. And today, I'm so happy to have you for this interview. And I definitely would like to introduce Switchboard and also the background story and also how important this technology is to impact on the DeFi. Um,
Of course. And Joe, thanks for having me. I've been a lover of Backpack, and I've known Armani going on 5 years now. So it's really been an
wow.
adventure going the whole Solana ecosystem with them. So it's been great to grow in the Solana space and beyond now, and great to see the progress you've made with Backpack. It's really something.
So great. Can we start off from your introduction, please?
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Blocks. I am co-founder and CEO of Switchboard. We've been around the Solana space for almost 5 years now. We've grown to $4 to $5 billion protocol, securing many perpetuals and derivatives exchanges across DeFi. We've done recent work with securing some of the NCN work that Jito has done, and we've been working closely with Backpack for a long time at this point, and we really love them as an Oracle provider. A bit about my background. I got a master's in computer security a few years ago, and I actually taught computer security for a bit. I was gonna go and get a PhD, but I've did security in the field at Facebook and Google for a few years before being pulled into the crypto space. I met my co-founder Chris, who actually started Circle's trading desk, and we left to go start this protocol because really we saw a need for faster oracles. All that was around the time was Chainlink, 30-minute feed updates, and you couldn't really do high frequency trading on chain at all at the time. So in 2021, we started Switchboard, and we got a lot of traction, and are currently the only customizable Oracle protocol where you can make your own data feeds on the fly.
Sounds great. I'm personally very curious how you got into crypto because you have a pretty good, decent background in the Web3 and I'm sorry, the Web2. And
Yep.
yeah, that's quite interesting how you guys come in.
When I moved to San Francisco, I had a close friend that actually started a crypto venture fund. And through that, he met a lot of people. He met Chris, who was actually actively running the desk. And through that, he was very well connected to the VCs that were really getting involved with the Solana. And I've always wanted to do a startup and felt like the perfect opportunity to go and as a jumping off point. So we were ideating for a bit, and we said it might be cool to make an Oracle on Solana because no one was actually live yet when we started. And we made a prototype, and Chris was able to close a seed round in 3 weeks. So I was like, I guess I should probably leave my job at this point and go do this. And yeah, that was in the beginning of 2021.
That's great. Can
Mhm.
we explain a little bit about Switchboard and what you guys solve and so on?
Yep. So when you think about blockchains and you think about the data that they need, if you want to actually build an exchange to, let's say, run perpetuals on Bitcoin, but let's think about it a little bit simpler. What if you want to lend Bitcoin for USD, or what if you want to lend USD for Bitcoin? Uh, you got to think about what these prices of, let's say, a stablecoin, like USDC, which isn't always exactly $1, or you just say another token like ETH. These might be variables. So when you want to decide how much collateral you need to actually borrow a certain amount of asset, or how much you get for lending a certain amount of asset, you have to know the prices of these two. But you don't have access to that information all the time. You might have to get it from somewhere off chain. So if you need that information from off chain, you need some specific Oracle to actually provide that data. And that's what we do. We provide that data that you're asking for on chain so you can do things like pricing, which is the most popular request that we have. So we built this in a way that if you want to get the price of Bitcoin, you could just ask on the fly. And you can do it in a few seconds. And if you want to get a new data feed up, you don't actually have to go through us to get a new asset. If you want to get the price of, let's say, Tesla for whatever reason, you can actually build a data feed that the oracles will all understand in a single, very simple language that you can define and bring it on chain. So you don't need a middleman to say, I need a way to get these prices. If you know a source off-chain on the web, you can get that on-chain using Switchboard.
I see. You might have touched upon this partially, but what are the critical difference between you and other Oracle providers?
No problem. So there's a few other Oracle providers. We could just go through how they function. Pith actually, I'm sure, is a very prominent one. They actually have their own fork of Solana called PithNet. And what they do is they actually have these providers that are set to support a data feed, a very specific data feed, and say they will constantly support this forever and always push prices to PithNet constantly. So it's always up to date for you to pull that price from PithNet. We don't have an L1 like that. You need to push data all the time. And frankly, for all these coins that are long tail, it might be wasteful. People are not requesting these prices for, let's say, a long tail asset, like a meme coin that came out recently, like Eliza, 24/7. So all this work that these validators are doing for PithNet might be a waste of work. Nobody's requesting it. So how we work actually is you can actually make a web request to our network. And what you hit is something called a gateway that will distribute this request. All the oracles will see that you want the price right then, and then they go do the work at that time to go fetch it and bring it back. So it's a lot more resourceful or efficient in how it's fetching prices. So it doesn't actually waste that time getting these other resources. And because it's on demand, and that's what we call it, Switchboard on demand, we can scale infinitely. And we don't have to worry about supporting these price feeds forever because if they're not used at the time, that's fine. The validators don't have to do the work for them. But if they start picking up volume, it's very easy to optimize the routes for them to make sure it's very fast. One of the new products that we're actually offering too is something called Switchboard Surge, where we optimize the entire path to be streaming from these first-party sources that we know are providing this information that's high volume, and to do a transparent WebSocket back to a user. So it's less than 100 milliseconds in those cases.
I see. And then also that means the cheaper solution for example, exchanges. Is that right?
Exactly, because you don't have to pay for all the wasted work that validators on, let's say, another Oracle provider might need to do without getting any prices requested. So we really give the biggest bang for the buck for how much work validators are doing versus what you need to pay.
I see. I might have been wrong, but is this a decentralized solution, or how do you kind of define this?
Yep. So we are fully decentralized. All of the oracles that we onboard are organized in something that we call a queue. And there's an admin for the queue, which could be a single signer, it could be a multi-sig, or it could be a DAO. And this DAO actually has a configuration for each oracle that requests to come on, whether it's allowed to join. If that DAO approves it, then they're allowed to do something called a heartbeat. And the heartbeat basically advertises themselves on-chain. And when the oracles see on-chain that a new one's been spun up, they talk to each other for load balancing of the requests.
I see. Yeah, that's quite an interesting point. So now you mentioned about the example of Tesla. Well, does that mean that you can go beyond just the tokens, or what are the kind of possibilities?
Yeah, so we have a whole design language you can do. And actually on our site, we have something called a feed builder. And you can put in any source you would like and actually get that price information on chain. So if it's a REST API and it exists on the internet, you can get that through Switchboard in a few minutes.
Well, okay, so that means DEXs or any of your partners can also refer those prices. That means they can provide such, let's say, perpetuals and so on.
Yeah, and for anything more complex to fetch, that's not a basic REST API. We do a lot of integrations for people that it's very easy for others that want to build a feed to get from those sources. Let's say Jupiter, for example. We've made a whole SDK around adding Jupiter price feeds to these things that you can build with. So let's say you want to pull a price feed, divide by 100, and then multiply by the price of USDC, so it's balanced. You can do that by chaining these events that we actually have defined in these data feed tasks, as we call them.
I see. Now, what are the challenges to grow your business at this moment? I think this might be, this business might be a little bit on the BD heavy, or what do you think?
So really, when you think about what oracles are, when do oracles do the work, and when do they actually have to delegate some cost to a user? That is usually based on the load that they get and CPU power that they have to expend to do this work. There's two ways you can think about it. One is Oracle's going to be paid out when the user actually submits a response on chain showing that we actually signed for a value. The other is for very high frequency information. We can give people special access that the Oracle providers could charge an up fee for by giving them a certain API gated key. So to even get on the network, we have these things called gateways that each Oracle runs, and they can communicate saying, if you're going to be connecting to a gateway, you have to be registered for this special tier so the Oracles know that they're not expending work for nothing. So there's different service levels as you get higher frequency and higher frequency that users can subscribe to and really make it cost effective for all the Oracles to actually run.
I see. Now, a lot of institutions, especially I think now hedge funds, as well as institutions now coming into the DeFi ecosystem. How does it like impact your business?
Yeah, I say that a lot of people have been asking for a lot of equities and futures prices, and there's a lot of different ways that you can think about it. One, there's different types of futures contracts that you can just say, are you going to just get the prices of the next one expiring? What happens after hours? It just changes the game of how this is played a little bit. And you have to think about the sources of this information because it's very different sources from crypto sources. It's not as open. So what we end up doing is we actually onboard certain market makers that can do the work and support these price feeds, and they might get some payment of the usages that users might request from certain sources. So in this place that we're falling now is people are actually being incentivized to provide more information, and the Oracle network is being incentivized to pay out those specific people by how much that information is used. And it's great with how Switchboard is actually created because we can gate certain access to certain feeds through different tiers and through different access keys. And those different Oracle providers could be paid out by how much their data is used.
I see. And I think from the other side, so like maybe traders or people who run the funds, having a Switchboard on the platform that they're using could be really beneficial as well to save the costs and I think properly manage the risk assets and so on.
Yeah. So even for centralized exchanges, it doesn't have to be used on chain. If they want to get prices for pricing collateral, that is something you can definitely do when you've got a very resilient system for making sure prices are safe to use. The other side of this is when you think about perpetuals, you have to be very careful. Because what if an Oracle price isn't as live as, let's say, the price on Binance? What if it reflects a 500 millisecond difference? Could people front run your Oracle on chain to know which direction the next tick is going to be? Because that can be very dangerous for a perps. If somebody knows the price before the Oracle reports it on chain, that's a free trade for them. And they can extract a lot of value from their perpetual. So you have to be very careful on making sure that you are the first to know the price before any user could try to push a price on chain before that's allowed. So it's a really game of cat and mouse. You have to make sure you're fast. Or you have to build a perpetual in what I call the GMX way, is which they take an Oracle price before trade and then after trade, and they take the worst of those two, which makes sure that a user couldn't be front running an Oracle.
I see. Briefly, you mentioned about NCN. Can you touch upon like what it is and why you're like doing this mechanism and so on?
Yeah, no, definitely. So Jito actually made a restaking layer on Solana, and they actually call that the node consensus network. But really, as simple as it is, it's just a restaking platform. And what this does is it makes it really, really easy to access stake liquidity that can be shared among different protocols. You might know the Vault Fragmetric, which has been getting a lot of volume recently. We're using the Fragmetric Vault to delegate stake to our oracles that incentivizes the oracles to behave properly, because the more stake they get, the more requests that are forwarded to them specifically. So having more stake on that work represents more skin in the game because you are representing the Vault's assets. And the Vault will deallocate stake from your nodes if you are not performing well, or if you're performing poorly, it might even slash your node. So really, when you are on a restaking layer, it takes away the need to attract a lot of liquidity strictly to your protocol. If people want to stake to you, they get a stake to this restaking layer, and it's managed for them. So it's a way easier way to get stake into a protocol.
And then I think people who stake Sol into Fragmetric, like I do, receive the token of Switchboard, right?
Yep.
And then
exactly.
with those tokens, what are they people can do with it?
Yes. So when you actually have a Switch token, there's two ways you can interact with the protocol with this. One is you can actually stake a certain amount of Switch to get higher throughput on the Switchboard network. So if you're not staking anything, you have a rate limit of how much you can request price feeds. But if you're a top end trader that you need prices all the time, you need to increase your rate limit of how much you're requesting things. So let's say if you want to make 20 requests per second, you need to stake some Switch to make sure you have access freely to all that information. On the other side of this, oracles can stake the Switch on their side for more benefit on getting requests to them. So if they're staking more, they can have a higher threshold to say, I'm a priority node, I'm putting more skin in the game, I'm going to be the most performant possible. So you should put more requests through my node and hence get more rewards from the network.
So that means your partners could buy a Switch token to like speed up the throughput.
Yes, so they can get more stake or request delegated through their node and get more rewards and SOL.
I see. So the more partners you have, or the more people use the Switchboard, I think the demand of the tokens is going to increase.
Well, I can't comment on that. My lawyers would be very mad.
I mean, that's how I perceived.
Yeah. Okay. That's Backpack's opinion.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion, I would say.
Yeah, okay, very good.
But I think this is pretty interesting. I don't want to go too much about the price movement, but I think this is very interesting mechanism. I thought,
I think it's a way to think about tokens that I think should be thought of as an access control system. Because really, what does a token do? And Tolly tweeted recently that token incentivizations are basically anti-denial of service attack. It is meant to prevent spam. And that's really what the goal is here, to make sure that utilizing Switchboard is intentful and not wasteful to the resources. So if we can provide this, we don't want anyone abusing it and hurting anybody else's experience.
I see. From the DeFi protocol perspective, how do they normally choose oracles?
Yeah, most of the time, it's someone that can provide something the first and the quickest. Overall, the Switchboard's the easiest to spin up a data feed very quickly. But as we noticed, a lot of people want a little assistance building data feeds. So we've made a whole UI to make it even simpler to auto-index everything new coming in on Solana. So if there's a new data feed, we want to make it searchable just by the ticker and not need any new data providers to start providing quotes at all. And the other side of this is speed. If you're doing a perp, like I mentioned, the good user experience is to do it as fast as possible. Because if you do it the GMX method, you don't want the user to actually see and wait for those two quotes on the oracle. So having this as fast as possible so the user experience of these other apps is the best is probably the most crucial, as we've seen.
Yeah, I see it. And now I think I just like literally saw like 1 hour ago about the tweets of Switchboard and also I think Monad doing some sort of like MA and so on. It seems like Monad and you guys are pretty good in a pretty good relationship and also trying to do the business together. What are the like logic behind
that partnership? So it's actually very funny. We've known Intern for years, and he's been head of the socials and community on Monad forever. And Chris knew Keone back in his Circle days. So they had a long-standing relationship. And I met him during Stanford Blockchain Conference a few years ago, and we just kind of hit it off. And it's been a good relationship ever since. And we're very excited for high-speed chains. I think that as you get to the scope of how L1s are behaving recently, I see a lot coming up that I think try to capitalize in the wrong ways. But I'll leave that to my own opinions. But I see a lot that are breaking ground in new areas. And I see a lot of the money on EVM as sticky money, not moving to other protocols or platforms. So what I see when I think of the high-speed EVMs is if you can actually get all the Aves of the world to make a transparent bridge to this new, faster system so it's more fluid for your trading, all of the liquidity that's still on ETH could easily be moved over there. So that's why I'm very excited about Monad specifically, because I think if you can capitalize on all the value that's still locked on Ethereum and move it to something that's more usable today, you have a very, very large market to start putting more liquidity into other applications again.
I see. And then now it's obviously you can openly work with multiple chains, and that is, I think, going to be the path. But like when you work with, or when you are able to work with multiple chains, do you have any like specific focus, or you vertical focus, or what are the growth strategy of Switchboard?
Yeah, I think whenever we think about a new chain, we want to think about who are the users that are coming to this chain that we can support. If we're going to deploy to a chain and there's going to be no traffic, it's going to be a maintenance cost for us, but also like who's really driving the traffic here. We don't want to deploy something where the Oracle is actually running all the traffic just to update data feeds that are not used. So we want to make sure that we're supporting a very strong ecosystem when we go somewhere. So when we go forward, we try to be very selective and make sure that we're not wasting our own dev resources on a chain that's not going to get much traffic or use for us. We want to make sure that we are supporting people that have a plan on how they're attracting users and how they're attracting attention.
I see. And now I'm assuming, because we talked about something about the token. So I'm assuming tokens coming. What are the users' incentive to hold or stake the Switch tokens?
I might have to hold my tongue there because I think my lawyers again will be mad at me. Sorry, okay. I have to do a few gaps here.
Okay, I see. I think I wait and see the announcement.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I'll say that Chris is much more well versed in what you're allowed to and to not say, and I'm told to shut up about it.
Okay, I mean that's quite a safe way. I think that's better.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that we should get excited about Switchboards than today that we couldn't cover?
Yeah, I think the most exciting things that we're doing are twofold. One of them is Switchboard Sail, if you've heard about that. And this is actually our TE security layer. And I don't know how much you know about TEs, but I'll pause there. Do you know about SGX and AMD Sev, all those different types of technologies and what they do?
Not as much as I wish.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll preface it with this. When you're thinking about how like DeFi actually can interact with these new technologies like AI, how do you actually verify the other side of the coin here, which is, what if I have something that could represent me, manage my funds? If I wanted to give something to delegate all my intents, as they're calling it now, to do these actions for me, how do I trust that? And what you can do is there is something called a trusted execution environment you can run these models in. And what this is, it's a hardware-based proof that you can prove the exact binary that's running. And what we can do is we can, on startup, generate a private key that represents your AI, that represents your trading. And anytime they want to do an action, we can check a signature of this private key and prove it is this version of this LLM or this agent. And how that's really powerful is now you can have anything on chain that is a provable binary off chain that is representing you. So you don't have to worry about trusting this random key pair if you want to sign your funds away to an agent to represent your actions. So when you're thinking about all the stuff they say about intents, about just understanding how you want to trade, this is really powerful for making sure that's trustless still. So what we want to do is make a very, very simple way to make the world verifiable. When people want to interact with these technologies, it's really confusing. We want to make it as simple for the developer. Just build a Docker container. That's all you got to do. And then we can do the rest of the verification. And we actually use this technology for proving our oracles are oracles. So when you're delivering prices, we actually have hardware proof showing that only our version of our approved oracles is delivering prices. So in that way, it's not just a signer that's delivering prices. It is actually a proven key pair that's within our approved binary. So we can actually on-chain approve what binaries are running off-chain for Switchboard.
And that is really beneficial for both users and also DEX runner, or?
It's for developers. It is a developer tool.
I see.
If you've seen a lot of the excitement with Archium, they're doing a lot of multi-party computations and fully homomorphic encryption. These are very good, and these are actually mathematically provable, but they're a little bit slower. These are if you want to run a single binary that needs a hardware proof at the start and then can run very, very quickly. And the only slowdown is about 5% of the CPU cap from our current estimations. So it's still very, very fast.
I see. So that means a lot of, I think, institutional related, the product team, they would like to in some sense, want to use the technology, I guess, in the future.
Yeah, I would say if you think about how this would be used, I think it's similar to Archium, similar to the Follow network, if you know those two.
Okay, that's great. I think time is quickly running up now. So wanted to, yeah, thank you so much. And also, can you give us some message to the audience, anything that you're getting excited about or anything that you kind of want to say before we leave?
Yeah, I think I'm just really excited for these new high-speed utilities of Switchboard. I think sub 100 milliseconds is coming very, very soon. And if you think about the speed of light, that's almost 200 milliseconds. We're going to be faster than the speed of light in a lot of ways if you actually get co-located in a lot of areas. So fast data, it's coming. And I think there's a lot of interesting things happening with Backpack that we might be working on together soon too. So stay excited.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Blocks. Looking forward to seeing you very soon.
Yeah, Joe, thanks so much.